I died with her betrayal fresh in my mind, the pain of watching Sophia walk out our door with packed bags still burning in my chest. Then I opened my eyes in my college dorm room 7 years in the past, back to the day I first met her. Back when I was still naive enough to give her my whole heart, she ran back to her ex the moment my startup failed. The night I lost everything, I found texts on her phone to Jason. While I worked 80-hour weeks to build our future, she was planning her escape with her wealthy ex-boyfriend. I begged her to stay, I cried, I promised to fix everything. She still left me broke and alone, now I have a second chance. And this time when she leaves, I'll let her go and watch as regret consumes her. The sunlight streamed through half-drawn blinds, casting strips of gold across my cramped dorm room. For a moment I thought I was dreaming. The cheap vinyl desk, the twin XL bed with its faded blue comforter, the roommate snoring softly in the bed by the window. All of it had been replaced by a downtown apartment years ago, our apartment where everything fell apart. I sat up, heart hammering in my chest, and caught my reflection in the mirror mounted on the closet door. The face staring back was still me, but younger. No wrinkles around the eyes from long nights coding. No shadows beneath them from the stress of watching my company crumble. Just me at 20, the morning I was supposed to meet Sophia for the first time, my hand trembled as I checked my phone. September 15th, 2016. 7 years before Sophia would stand in our living room, bags packed, telling me she needed space while her messages to Jason lit up her phone in her pocket. Jason, even thinking his name made my stomach clench. The high school sweetheart she swore was ancient history. The corporate lawyer with the downtown office and trust fund who swooped in the moment my company failed. The man she ran back to when I was at my lowest, leaving me broke and alone. My roommate stirred, yawning loudly as he checked his phone. "You look like you've seen a ghost, man, late night." I shook my head, unable to explain the storm of emotions crashing through me. How could I tell him I had lived the next 7 years already? That I knew exactly how my life would unfold if I didn't change course. "Coffee," I managed to say. "Need coffee," the campus coffee shop. That was where it happened the first time, where I spilled my latte on her psychology textbook and spent 20 apologetic minutes helping her dry the pages, where her laugh first wrapped around my heart like a vine that would eventually squeeze the life from it. I showered quickly, my mind racing through possibilities. Was this really happening? Had I somehow been given a second chance? Or was this some cruel dream my dying brain conjured as a final comfort? Either way, I knew what I had to do. Avoid the coffee shop. Avoid Sophia. Change the path that led to those final moments of watching her walk out our door while messages from Jason lit up her phone. I stepped out of my dorm building into the crisp autumn air, determined to break the pattern. But my feet carried me toward the coffee shop anyway, pulled by an invisible force, curiosity perhaps. Or the masochistic need to see her face one more time. Knowing what I knew now, I told myself I would just look. Stand outside, confirm she was there, then walk away forever. A clean break before we ever began, the coffee shop windows fogged with steam from the espresso machines. Through the glass, I could see her at a corner table, bent over her psychology textbook, dark hair falling across her face just as it had the first time. My heart stuttered in my chest. Before I could stop myself, I was inside, ordering a latte I didn't want, watching her from the corner of my eye. She tucked her hair behind her ear, revealing the small birthmark near her temple that I used to kiss each night before we fell asleep. The barista called my name. I took my drink and in that moment made a decision that would alter everything. Instead of carefully navigating around her table as I had apparently done in some alternate reality where we never met, I let myself drift too close, sloshing hot coffee directly onto her open textbook. "Oh no," Sophia looked up, brown eyes wide with surprise. "My book, I am so sorry," I said, grabbing napkins from a nearby dispenser. The words felt strange on my tongue, a script I was both writing and following. "Let me help." She dabbed at the pages, a small smile forming despite the damage. "It's okay, really. These psychology texts are so dry, a little coffee might actually improve the content." Her voice. God, her voice still had the power to disarm me completely. For a moment, I forgot everything, the betrayal, the pain, the lonely nights after she left. I forgot the text to Jason I found months before she actually left, the ones that proved she had been planning her exit long before my company failed. "I'm Ethan," I said, extending my hand as I had before. Sophia, she replied, her fingers warm against mine. I sat across from her, helping dry each page, watching her laugh at my self-deprecating jokes. The chemistry between us was immediate and undeniable, just as it had been the first time. But now I could see something I had missed before, the slight guardedness in her eyes, the way she checked her phone twice in the first 5 minutes. Boyfriend? I asked, nodding toward her phone. A flush crept up her neck. Ex, actually, recent ex, it's complicated. Jason. She was already dealing with Jason. We talked for an hour, and despite everything I knew, I found myself falling into the same patterns, making her laugh. Listening attentively to her dreams of becoming a clinical psychologist, sharing filtered versions of my own ambitions. As I walked back to my dorm after exchanging numbers, my initial plan to avoid her completely lay in ruins. But a new plan began forming, one where I would keep my eyes open this time. One where I would protect my heart while learning everything I could about what made Sophia run back to Jason when things got tough. Over the next few weeks, we fell into a friendship that bordered on something more. I deliberately held back, never initiating, watching as her interest in me grew precisely because I wasn't chasing her as I had the first time. When she finally confessed her feelings one night while studying in my dorm room, I was prepared. I really like you, Ethan, she said, her eyes fixed on her textbook. More than a friend, the old me would have immediately pulled her into my arms, thrilled that this beautiful, intelligent woman wanted me. Instead, I placed my pencil down carefully and studied her face. What about your ex, Jason, right? Her surprise was evident, though she tried to hide it. How did you know his name? I smiled, thinking quickly. You mentioned it once. Is that really over? Because I don't do complicated. She reached for my hand, her expression earnest. It's over. We dated all through high school, but we want different things now. I want someone real, someone like you. I let myself squeeze her hand, knowing I was stepping onto a path I had walked before. But this time, I had my eyes wide open. This time, I knew exactly who Sophia was and what she was capable of. Then let's see where this goes, I said, leaning in to kiss her for the first time again. But slowly. What I didn't tell her was that while my lips met hers, my mind was already mapping out how this would end differently. I would not lose myself in her. I would not build my world around her. And when the time came for her to run back to Jason, I would let her go. As I navigated my second chance at college, I made deliberate choices to diverge from my previous path. Where I once spent every waking moment with Sophia, I now carved out time for myself and cultivated genuine friendships beyond our relationship. You should come to the entrepreneurship mixer tonight, my roommate suggested one evening. In my first life, I'd skipped it to take Sophia to dinner. Professor Hendricks will be there, and you know he only selects a few students for that summer incubator program. I'll be there, I said, ignoring the text from Sophia asking about our evening plans. I felt a twinge of guilt when I told her I had a networking event, but reminded myself of the bigger picture. In my previous life, I'd sacrificed every opportunity to be with her, only for her to leave the moment things got difficult. The entrepreneurship mixer changed everything. Instead of pursuing the social media startup that eventually bankrupted me, I connected with a professor working on predictive analytics for renewable energy systems. His insights aligned perfectly with my true interests I'd abandoned the first time to chase faster money for the future I thought Sophia wanted. You seem different lately, Sophia said one night as we lay in her twin bed, her head resting on my chest. More focused, more driven. I ran my fingers through her hair, remembering how it felt when she walked out our door for the last time. I'm just trying to build something meaningful. I like it, she said, propping herself up to look at me. But sometimes I feel like you're holding back with me, like there's a part of you I can't reach. Because there was. The part that remembered her betrayal, that remembered finding texts on her phone months before she left. The part that still heard her say she needed someone more stable, more established. Like Jason. I'm just careful with my heart, I told her, a truth wrapped in omission. Always have been. As junior year progressed, my new path brought unexpected success. The research project with Professor Hendricks led to a publication, and I found myself fielding interest from tech companies focusing on sustainability, companies with stable business models unlike my failed startup. Meanwhile, I kept tabs on Jason through social media. He was following the exact same path as before law school, then the prestigious firm downtown. The firm that would one day handle the dissolution of my company while he rekindled his relationship with Sophia. When Sophia and I moved in together after graduation, I insisted on a place I could afford on my own if necessary. Nothing like the expensive downtown apartment I'd stretched to afford the first time around. It's smaller than I expected, she said, surveying the modest two-bedroom near the university where I'd secured a research position. It's what we can afford without financial stress, I replied, watching her reaction carefully. And the second bedroom makes a perfect home office. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, but she nodded. You're right, financial stability is important. I built a different life this time. While my research position didn't offer the potential millions my failed startup once promised, it provided stability and growth. I made connections in the renewable energy sector, positioned myself as an emerging voice in the field, and quietly built savings that Sophia knew nothing about. Our relationship was different too. Where I once worshipped the ground she walked on, now I maintained healthy boundaries. I loved her despite everything I knew. I couldn't help but love her, but I refused to lose myself in her again. Why don't you ever talk about our future? She asked one night after we'd been living together for 6 months. We sat on our small balcony watching the sunset over the city's skyline. What about our future concerns you? I countered, sipping my beer. She fidgeted with her wine glass. Marriage, kids, the normal things couples talk about after 3 years together. In my first life, I'd pushed for all those things. I'd shown her ring options, discussed names for our future children, planned our lives down to the neighborhood where we'd buy our first house. I think we're still young, I said instead. Still becoming who we're meant to be, why rush? Her disappointment was visible, but it didn't break me like it once would have. I knew now that her love was conditional in ways mine never was. Later that week, I checked her phone while she showered. No text from Jason yet, but I noticed she'd viewed his social media profiles recently. The countdown had begun. My research project gained momentum as I entered my second year at the university. We developed algorithms that significantly improved the efficiency of solar panel placement on variable terrain, and a major energy company expressed interest in licensing our technology. We should celebrate, Sophia suggested when I told her the news. This could be big, right? Potentially, I said, downplaying the magnitude. In truth, the licensing deal would give me more financial security than my failed startup ever had, but I'd learned to keep my cards close. I watched her carefully over the next few months, noting how she began mentioning Jason in casual conversation. I ran into Jason's mom at the grocery store, she said one evening. She said he's doing really well at his law firm, junior partner already. I nodded, unsurprised. Good for him. You're not jealous that I still talk to his family, she asked, her tone light but her eyes searching. Should I be? I laid my book down. Do you give me reason to be jealous? She laughed nervously. Of course not, it's just most guys would be weird about their girlfriend staying in touch with her ex's family. I'm not most guys, I said, returning to my book. And I trust you until you give me reason not to. The irony of my words wasn't lost on me. As the licensing deal progressed, I deliberately kept Sophia in the dark about the financial details. When she asked about the potential payout, I vaguely mentioned that most of it would go to the university, with my share being modest. In reality, as one of the primary researchers, my portion of the licensing deal would set me up quite comfortably, something I made sure was detailed in contracts only I saw. We should look for a bigger place with your new job, Sophia suggested one weekend as we passed a luxury apartment building downtown, coincidentally near Jason's firm. I like our place, I said firmly. And most of that money will go towards securing our future, not upgrading our lifestyle. She didn't push the issue, but I caught the flicker of disappointment. The Sophia I fell in love with claimed to value stability and modesty, but her actions eventually revealed different priorities. Just as in my previous life, things began to shift as my professional path diverged from the meteoric rise and crash of my startup. Without the extreme highs and dramatic lows, Sophia's interest seemed to wane slightly. She spent more evenings out with friends from work and grew increasingly protective of her phone. I knew exactly what was happening, but this time I didn't confront her. I didn't beg for her attention or try to reignite the spark. Instead, I focused on my work, my growing professional network, and quietly prepared for what I knew was coming. When Professor Hendricks offered me a chance to present our research at a major conference in New York, I accepted immediately. It would mean a week away from Sophia, a week during which, if history repeated itself, she would reconnect with Jason in person rather than just through texts. A whole week, she asked, frowning. Can't someone else go? This is important for my career, I said, already packing my laptop. And it's only 7 days, we'll barely have time to miss each other. As I kissed her goodbye, I slipped her phone from her purse and quickly installed tracking software while she gathered her keys. This time I wanted evidence beyond memory. I love you, she said at the door, and I wondered if she meant it or if she already knew she would betray me. I love you too, I replied, surprised to find I still meant it despite everything. See you in a week. The conference in New York was a tremendous success. My presentation on predictive analytics in renewable energy systems drew attention from industry leaders and potential investors. By the time I boarded my return flight, I had 3 job offers and a proposal for additional research funding. But while I networked and advanced my career, the tracking app on Sophia's phone told a different story. Coffee with Jason on Tuesday. Dinner on Thursday. Drinks that turned into a 3-hour meeting on Saturday night. I scrolled through the location data during my flight home, feeling strangely detached. In my previous life, this discovery would have devastated me. Now it merely confirmed what I already knew would happen. When I arrived home Sunday evening, Sophia greeted me with unusual enthusiasm, peppering me with questions about the conference and insisting we order in my favorite Thai food. You seem happy, I observed as we ate dinner at our small kitchen table. She tucked her hair behind her ear, a nervous tell I'd learned to recognize years ago. I just missed you. The apartment feels empty when you're gone. I wondered if she'd changed the sheets after Jason visited. In my first life, I'd been too blind to notice these patterns until it was too late. How was your week? I asked, watching her face carefully. Quiet, she lied smoothly. Work, gym, Netflix, nothing exciting. I nodded, letting her believe I accepted her version of events. Actually, I have some exciting news. The energy company that's licensing our technology made me a job offer, senior researcher with a significant bump in salary. Her eyes lit up. Ethan, that's amazing. When would you start? That's the thing, I said, setting down my fork. The position is in Boston. We'd have to relocate. I watched the enthusiasm drain from her face. In a previous life, I'd turned down a similar opportunity because Sophia didn't want to leave the city where Jason lived. Boston, she repeated, her voice tight. But your research position here, your team, everything we've built in this city. Sometimes opportunities require change, I said calmly. I thought you'd be excited, she pushed food around her plate. Of course I'm excited for you, it's just moving is a big decision. I have my job, my friends, my life here. And Jason, I thought but didn't say. We don't have to decide tonight, I assured her, though I already knew what her decision would be. I told them I'd give an answer within 2 weeks. The next day, I deliberately left early for work, giving Sophia time alone with her phone. The tracking app showed me exactly when she texted Jason, and I could imagine the content. Her boyfriend wanted to move her across the country, away from everything, away from him. That evening, Sophia was distracted and withdrawn. How serious are you about Boston? She asked as we prepared dinner. Very, I said. It's the logical next step in my career, she bit her lip. And if I can't go with you, there it was. In my first life, this was the moment I compromised, sacrificing opportunity for a relationship that was already doomed. I'd be disappointed, I said honestly. But I've worked too hard to pass this up. Over the next week, a familiar pattern emerged. Sophia grew increasingly distant, spending more time with friends while the tracking app showed her at Jason's apartment or meeting him for meals. She stopped asking about my day and initiated sex less frequently. Classic signs of emotional disconnection I'd missed the first time around. Meanwhile, I quietly prepared for Boston. I researched apartments, scheduled virtual interviews with additional companies in the area, and began separating our finances further. This time when she left, I would be ready. 2 weeks after my return from New York, my research project hit a significant snag. A critical algorithm failed during testing, potentially delaying the licensing deal. As I worked late nights to fix the issue, Sophia's absences became more pronounced. You're never home anymore, she complained on a rare evening together. All you do is work on your project. It's important, I replied, not mentioning that her location data showed she'd spent the previous evening at Jason's until nearly midnight. The entire deal depends on these tests, she sighed dramatically. Sometimes I feel like I'm not a priority in your life anymore. The irony was almost painful. We all make choices about priorities, I said, returning to my laptop. 3 days later, the algorithm failed catastrophically during a demonstration for the licensing company. Though they assured me they remained interested, they needed to see a working solution before proceeding with the deal. My team and I had 4 weeks to solve the problem. I arrived home that evening exhausted, only to find Sophia waiting with 2 glasses of wine. "Rough day?" she asked with unusual sympathy. I took the offered glass, wondering what prompted this sudden attentiveness. "The demo failed. We have a month to fix it or potentially lose the deal." Her eyes widened. "The licensing deal." "But what about the Boston job?" "That too," I admitted. "They're connected." She set her glass down, looking strangely relieved. "So we might not need to move after all. If we can't fix the algorithm, probably not," I said, watching her closely. "Would that make you happy, Sophia?" She had the decency to look ashamed. "I just think Boston would be a difficult transition right now, for both of us." That night, while Sophia slept, I checked her phone. The evidence was there just as before. Dozens of messages with Jason discussing their feelings, their history, how they'd never really stopped caring for each other. How challenging her current relationship had become. I took screenshots of everything, sending them to my own phone before carefully replacing hers on the nightstand. This time I would have proof beyond memory and suspicion. The next morning, I called in sick to work and waited until Sophia left for her job. Then I methodically checked the entire apartment, finding what I expected. A small diamond earring that wasn't hers beside the couch, a receipt for 2 movie tickets from a night she claimed to be working late, and a gift bag hidden in her closet with Jason's law firm logo on the tissue paper. In my first life, I'd been blindsided by her betrayal. This time, I was documenting it piece by piece. Over the next 2 weeks, I worked frantically on the algorithm issue while simultaneously interviewing with companies in Boston. Regardless of whether we fixed the current problem, I was determined to secure my future, a future I increasingly saw without Sophia. She grew bolder in her deception, claiming late work meetings that the tracking app showed were actually dinners with Jason, inventing girls' nights that ended at his apartment. I said nothing, letting her believe I remained oblivious. When my team finally identified the algorithm flaw, I worked through the night to implement the fix. By morning, we had a working solution that exceeded even our original projections. I texted the team to meet for an emergency test before contacting the licensing company. As I prepared to leave, Sophia emerged from the bedroom, looking surprised to see me dressed for work. "I thought you'd sleep in after working so late," she said. "Can't," I told her, gathering my laptop. "We might have solved the problem. Today could make or break the project." "Well, good luck," she offered, not asking for details. "I might be late tonight, dinner with Emma." Emma, who the tracking app would inevitably show was actually Jason. "Have fun," I said, kissing her cheek and wondering if it would be one of our last touches. The algorithm worked perfectly during testing. The licensing company representatives applauded, assured us the deal would proceed, and confirmed that my position in Boston remained open. All the pieces were finally falling into place. That evening, while Sophia was with Emma, I received a call from the Boston company's HR department. They needed an answer on the position by the end of the week. 3 days to decide, though my decision was already made. When Sophia returned home, flushed and smelling faintly of unfamiliar cologne, I was waiting with a gentle smile. "How was dinner with Emma?" I asked. "Great," she lied, avoiding my eyes. "How was your day? Did the algorithm work?" "Perfectly," I said. "The licensing deal is moving forward and the Boston position is officially mine if I want it. I need to give them an answer by Friday." Her smile faltered. "So soon, but we haven't really discussed what that means for us." "You're right," I agreed. "We should probably have that conversation." I watched her shift uncomfortably, knowing she was calculating how to end our relationship without appearing to be the villain, just as she had before. "Maybe we should sleep on it," she suggested, heading for the shower to wash away evidence of her evening, no doubt. "Sure," I replied, already planning the final act of this repeated drama. "We can talk tomorrow." I knew exactly what tomorrow would bring. The same conversation that had broken me the first time, except now I was fully prepared. This time I would let her go with a smile, knowing exactly what waited for both of us on the other side of goodbye. I woke early the next morning and made coffee, deliberately making enough for two. This day had haunted me for years in my previous life. The day Sophia tore my heart out and left me broken while she ran back to Jason. When she emerged from the bedroom, I had breakfast waiting. Avocado toast, her favorite, and fresh berries. "What's the occasion?" she asked, eyeing the spread with suspicion. Just felt like doing something nice, I said with a casual shrug. I need to run to campus for a meeting, but I thought we could have dinner tonight, talk about Boston and everything else. She chewed her lip. Actually, that works out well. I need to talk to you about something. I knew what that something was. I'd lived it before. Tonight, then, I agreed. I'll pick up wine on my way home. As I gathered my things, she called my name. When I turned, she was staring at me with an unreadable expression. You seem different lately, she said. Almost like you know something I don't. I smiled, kissed her forehead, and walked out the door. She had no idea how right she was. At the university, I finalized paperwork for the algorithm licensing and confirmed details of the Boston position. I also had a secret meeting with a competing energy company that had expressed interest in our technology. Having backup options was a luxury my previous life hadn't afforded me. By afternoon, I began my final preparations. I transferred money to an account Sophia couldn't access, backed up all evidence of her infidelity to secure cloud storage, and deliberately emptied our joint savings account, making it look worse than it was, making sure our financial situation appeared dire. When I returned home that evening, I found Sophia sitting nervously on the couch, already changed into casual clothes rather than her work attire. She'd clearly been home for hours preparing her speech. Wine? I offered, holding up the bottle I'd promised to bring. Actually, could we talk first? She asked, patting the seat beside her. I sat, maintaining a respectful distance between us. Of course, she took a deep breath. Ethan, you know I care about you deeply. The exact same opener she'd used the first time. I fought back a bitter smile. But lately, I've been feeling like we're heading in different directions, she continued. Your career is taking you to Boston, and I just don't see myself there. I nodded, letting her speak without interruption. These past few years have been wonderful, but I think I need some space to figure out what I really want. Her voice trembled with manufactured emotion. It's not about you, I promise. It's about me needing to find my own path. In my previous life, this was where I broke down, where I begged her to reconsider, promised to turn down Boston, swore I'd do anything to keep her. The pathetic display that had only cemented her decision to leave. Space, I repeated calmly. You mean you want to break up? She blinked, thrown by my directness. I think we need time apart to evaluate what we both want. Maybe it's not permanent, but with you going to Boston, is there someone else? I asked, already knowing the answer. What? No. She protested too quickly. This isn't about another person. I reached for my phone, scrolling through the screenshots I'd compiled. That's interesting because these messages to Jason tell a different story. The color drained from her face. You went through my phone? How could you invade my privacy like that? Classic deflection. In my first life, I'd apologized for discovering her betrayal rather than confronting it. I notice you're not denying the messages, I said quietly. Or the nights at his apartment. Or the earring I found by our couch. She stood up, shifting from guilty to indignant. You've been spying on me, tracking me? What kind of person does that? The kind who's been here before, I thought but didn't say. Instead, I remained seated, remarkably calm. I think the more relevant question is what kind of person cheats on their partner of 3 years, then tries to make it about needing space rather than admitting the truth. Her eyes filled with tears, genuine or theatrical, I couldn't tell anymore. It's complicated, Ethan. Jason and I have history. When you started working all those late nights focused only on your career, he was there for me. While I was securing our future, I corrected. But it doesn't matter now, you've made your choice. She stared at me, confused by my calm acceptance. This wasn't following the script from last time. I thought you'd be more upset, she admitted after a moment. I shrugged. Would it change anything if I cried, begged you to stay? Would you choose me over him? Her silence was answer enough. That's what I thought, I said, standing up. For what it's worth, I suspected for weeks. I just wanted to be sure before confronting you. Her expression shifted to one of confusion. If you've known for weeks, why did you still take the Boston job? Why keep acting like everything was normal? Because I've been planning my exit too, I said simply. The only difference is I was honest about mine. I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of wine, and leaned against the counter. The tension in the room was thick, but unlike last time, it wasn't crushing me. So what happens now? She asked, her voice small. Now you pack what you need for tonight and go to Jason's, I said calmly. Tomorrow we can figure out the logistics of separating our lives. She stood frozen, staring at me like I was a stranger. Just like that. 3 years together and you're not even going to fight for us. The audacity almost made me laugh. Why would I fight for someone who's already chosen someone else? I have too much self-respect for that. This was the man I should have been the first time, the man who recognized his worth and refused to beg for scraps of affection. "I'll get some things," she said finally, disappearing into the bedroom. While she packed, I texted my Boston contact confirming my acceptance of the position, then forwarded the news to my research team. By the time Sophia emerged with an overnight bag, my future was secured. "I thought you might try to stop me," she said, lingering by the door. I shook my head. "I'm not standing in your way, Sophia. If Jason makes you happier than I do, then that's where you should be." A flicker of disappointment crossed her face. Had she wanted the drama, the validation of being fought over? "Will you be okay?" she asked, a feeble attempt at compassion. "Better than okay," I assured her. "Boston will be a fresh start," she nodded slowly. "I hope you find what you're looking for there." "I already know what I'm looking for," I replied. "And I know what I'm not looking for too." As I helped her carry her bag to the door, the same door she'd walked out of in my previous life, I felt a strange sense of closure. The cycle was breaking, the timeline diverging. "Let me know when you want to come get the rest of your things," I said. "I'll make sure I'm not here so it's not awkward." She lingered for a moment, perhaps waiting for me to break, to show some crack in my composure that would validate her actions. "Goodbye, Ethan," she said finally. "Goodbye, Sophia." As the door closed behind her, I waited for the pain, the crushing sense of abandonment that had nearly destroyed me the first time. It never came. Instead, I felt lighter than I had in years, both this life and the previous one. I poured another glass of wine, walked to the window, and watched as she got into her car and drove away toward Jason's apartment. I smiled, raising my glass in a silent toast to my future. This time I was the one watching her go with dry eyes, knowing exactly what awaited her down that road. I sent a quick text to my real estate contact in Boston, confirming my interest in viewing apartments next weekend. Then I turned on some music and began sorting through our shared possessions, mentally categorizing what was hers to take and what was mine to keep. In my previous life, this apartment had felt like a mausoleum after she left, filled with the ghosts of a relationship I couldn't let go. Now it felt like a temporary stop on a journey that was just beginning, my journey, unburdened by her betrayal. That night I slept better than I had in years, sprawled across the bed we once shared, no longer haunted by what might have been. Sometimes the most satisfying revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's showing them they never had the power to destroy you in the first place. I gave Sophia 2 weeks to retrieve her belongings, during which I spent most of my time at the university finalizing the licensing deal and preparing for my transition to Boston. When I did return to the apartment, I found items gradually disappearing: her books, her clothes, her decorative touches that had once made the space feel like ours. She texted occasionally, brief messages about picking up specific items or asking if certain furniture was hers to take. I responded with equal brevity, maintaining a polite distance that clearly unsettled her. "You're being so calm about all this," she wrote one evening. "I expected you to be angrier." What would anger accomplish? I replied, then set my phone aside, not waiting for her response. The truth was, I had already lived through the anger, the grief, the desperate attempts to understand what I'd done wrong. In this second chance, I could skip those painful stages and move directly to acceptance. 3 weeks after Sophia left, I traveled to Boston to secure an apartment and finalize details of my new position. The city felt refreshing, filled with possibilities untainted by memories of my previous life. My new employers treated me with the respect of someone bringing valuable expertise to their company, a stark contrast to the pity I'd received after my startup collapsed. The licensing deal for our algorithm had garnered industry attention, establishing me as an emerging leader in renewable energy analytics rather than a cautionary tale of entrepreneurial failure. I signed a lease on a sleek one-bedroom overlooking the Charles River and arranged for movers to pack and transport my belongings from the old apartment. My new life was taking shape precisely as I'd planned, without the haunting regrets of opportunities missed. Upon my return, I found a letter from Sophia slipped under my door. I contemplated throwing it away unread, but decided knowledge was always preferable to ignorance. "I miss you," she'd written. "Jason and I have been arguing constantly. I think I made a mistake. Can we talk?" I folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer. In my previous life, this was the message I desperately hoped for but never received. Now that I had it, I felt nothing but a detached sense of validation. I didn't respond. Some lessons needed to be learned without my intervention. The day before my scheduled departure for Boston, I agreed to meet my research team for farewell drinks. Professor Hendricks toasted my success, colleagues congratulated me on the licensing deal, and for the first time in either of my lives, I felt truly respected for my professional achievements rather than pitied for my personal failures. As we shared drinks at our favorite campus bar, a familiar figure appeared at the entrance. Sophia, looking unsure and out of place among my academic peers. "Your ex is here," my colleague whispered, nodding toward the door. "I see her," I said calmly, taking another sip of my beer. Sophia approached hesitantly, clearly not expecting to find me surrounded by friends and colleagues. "Ethan, can I talk to you for a minute privately? In my previous life, I would have eagerly abandoned everyone for a moment of her attention. Now I gestured to the empty chair beside me. "You can join us if you'd like, but I'm celebrating with my team tonight." She glanced uncomfortably at the curious faces around the table. "Maybe I should come back another time. I leave for Boston tomorrow," I reminded her. "There won't be another time." After a moment of visible internal debate, she took the offered seat, forcing a smile for my colleagues who clearly knew exactly who she was. "We're celebrating the licensing deal," Professor Hendricks explained, either oblivious to the tension or deliberately ignoring it. "Ethan's algorithm is going to revolutionize solar panel efficiency." "That's wonderful," Sophia said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Ethan always said it would be a game changer." The conversation continued around us, professional accomplishments and future projects discussed with enthusiasm while Sophia sat silently beside me, increasingly aware that she was witnessing a side of my life that had flourished without her. As the gathering began to disperse, she finally got her wish for privacy. We stood outside the bar in the cool evening air, the awkwardness between us palpable. "You're really leaving tomorrow?" she asked. "First thing in the morning," I confirmed. "The movers already took everything." She wrapped her arms around herself, whether from the chill or discomfort I couldn't tell. "I read about your algorithm in the university newsletter. They're calling it groundbreaking." "It will make clean energy more accessible," I said, my passion for the work evident despite my emotional detachment from her. "That was always the goal." "You seem different," she observed. "Happy, I am happy," I agreed. "Things worked out exactly as they should have." She hesitated, then pushed forward. "Jason and I broke up. It was a mistake, Ethan. I got scared about Boston, about change, and I ran to something familiar." In my first life, these words would have been everything I wanted to hear. Now they felt like lines from a play I'd seen too many times to be moved by the performance. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, meaning it despite everything. "Breakups are difficult." She stepped closer. "I was hoping maybe we could talk about us, about giving things another chance." "There is no us anymore, Sophia," I said gently. "You made your choice and I've made mine." "People make mistakes," she insisted, tears forming in her eyes. "Doesn't our history count for anything?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not the woman who had destroyed me but someone fighting her own battles, making her own mistakes. In that moment, I felt not anger but a strange sort of compassion. "Our history counts for everything," I said. "It taught me what I want and what I don't want in my life. It taught me my own worth. And I'm not worth fighting for." Her voice cracked slightly. "You already chose someone else over me," I reminded her. "I'm just respecting that choice more than you do." She flinched as if I'd slapped her. "That's not fair." "Perhaps not," I conceded. "But it's true." A tear slipped down her cheek. "So this is it, 3 years together and you can just walk away without looking back." The irony of her question wasn't lost on me. "I learned from the best," I said softly. We stood in silence for a moment, the finality of our separation hanging between us. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Sophia," I said finally. "I really do." "I thought I already had," she whispered. I gave her a sad smile. "No, you didn't. If you had, we wouldn't be having this conversation." As I walked away, she called after me. "Will you at least stay in touch? Let me know how Boston treats you." I turned back one last time. "I think a clean break is better for both of us." Goodbye, Sophia. In my first life, walking away from her had been impossible. Now it felt like the only logical step forward. The next morning, as my plane lifted off toward Boston and my new life, I didn't look back at the city we'd shared. In my pocket was a letter I'd written but never sent, explaining everything: my rebirth, my foreknowledge of her betrayal, my calculated responses to her actions. A confession I'd ultimately decided to burn rather than send, recognizing that some truths served no purpose beyond vindication. My new apartment in Boston felt instantly more like home than any place I'd shared with Sophia. I threw myself into my work, quickly establishing myself as an innovative voice in renewable energy. My colleagues respected me, my superiors valued my contributions, and for the first time in either of my lives, I built an identity completely separate from my relationship status. 3 months after my move, the technology journal that had once documented my startup's failure published a feature on my algorithm's implementation in solar farms across New England. The photo accompanying the article showed me confidently explaining the system to a group of impressed investors. I knew, without needing confirmation, that Sophia would see it, that she would finally understand what she had walked away from when she ran back to Jason. The thought brought not satisfaction but a quiet sense of justice, not revenge, but the natural consequence of choices made and paths taken. 6 months into my new life in Boston, I had established a comfortable routine. My work at the energy company provided the intellectual challenge I craved, my apartment overlooking the Charles River offered peaceful solitude, and I had even formed meaningful friendships with colleagues who shared my passion for renewable technology. On a crisp autumn morning, I presented our latest findings at an industry conference downtown. As I fielded questions from the audience, I noticed a familiar figure slip into the back of the room. Sophia, looking slightly thinner than I remembered, her eyes fixed intently on me as I spoke about sustainable energy solutions. My presentation concluded to enthusiastic applause. As attendees gathered around me with follow-up questions and business cards, I occasionally glanced toward the back, confirming she remained in place waiting. Eventually, the crowd thinned and she approached cautiously as if expecting me to disappear or dismiss her. "That was impressive," she said, her voice carrying a nervousness I'd rarely heard from her. "You always made the technical stuff sound accessible." "Thank you," I replied, maintaining a professional distance. "What brings you to Boston?" She shifted her weight, clutching her purse strap. I needed to see you." I checked my watch, not wanting to appear eager for this conversation but not cruel enough to dismiss her outright. "I have a lunch meeting in an hour. We could grab coffee if you'd like." Relief washed over her face. "I would like that, very much." We walked to a nearby cafe in awkward silence, the ease of our former relationship long evaporated. After ordering, we took a table by the window, the bustling Boston street providing a welcome distraction from the tension between us. "How have you been?" I asked, a safe opening to what promised to be a difficult conversation. "Honestly, not great." She stared into her coffee cup as if it might contain answers. "Things with Jason fell apart completely. It turns out what we had in the past couldn't survive in the present." I nodded, unsurprised. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you really?" Her eyes met mine, searching for any hint of satisfaction at her failed relationship. "I am," I said truthfully. "I never wanted you to be unhappy, Sophia. That wasn't the point of any of this." She looked momentarily confused. "Any of what?" I waved the question away. "Just mean that despite everything, I wouldn't wish unhappiness on you." She took a deep breath, steadying herself for what she came to say. "I made a terrible mistake, Ethan. Running back to Jason when things got complicated, throwing away what we had. I've regretted it every day since. In my previous life, these words would have been everything I dreamed of hearing. Now they simply confirmed what I already knew would happen." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, genuinely curious about her expectations. "Because I still love you," she said, her voice catching. "Because I think what we had was real and I threw it away for something that wasn't." I took a slow sip of my coffee, considering her words. "Did you love me when you were meeting Jason behind my back, when you were texting him from our bed, when you walked out our door without looking back?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I was confused, scared about Boston, about change. Jason was familiar, safe. It was a moment of weakness. A moment that lasted weeks," I corrected gently. "A series of conscious choices, not a single mistake." She wiped at her eyes. "I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve another chance, but I had to try, had to tell you how sorry I am, how much I regret what I did." Looking at her across the table, I felt a strange sense of closure. The woman who had once held such power over me now seemed smaller somehow, more human in her flaws and regrets. "I appreciate your honesty," I said after a moment. "And your apology." Hope flickered in her eyes. "Does that mean there's a chance for us?" "No," I said firmly. "That chapter of our lives is closed, Sophia. We can't go back. Why not? She pressed. People make mistakes, they learn and grow from them. I've changed. So have I replied. That's the point you're missing. The man who would take you back after what happened doesn't exist anymore. She reached across the table, placing her hand over mine. The connection we had, the way we understood each other, you can't tell me that's completely gone. I gently withdrew my hand. It's not about what's gone. It's about what I won't compromise on anymore. Trust is one of those things. I would never betray your trust again, she insisted. You shouldn't have betrayed it the first time, I said simply. We sat in silence, the finality of my position settling between us. Part of me wished I could explain everything, my rebirth, my foreknowledge, my careful planning, but some truths served no purpose beyond confusion. I have a life here now, I said eventually. A good one. Are you seeing someone? She asked, the question clearly painful for her. As if on cue, the cafe door opened and Rebecca walked in, scanning the room before spotting me. I had met her at a charity fundraiser 2 months after moving to Boston, a pediatric surgeon with kind eyes and a sharp intellect who had never made me feel like I needed to be anyone other than myself. I waved her over, watching Sophia's expression shift as she realized the significance of the moment. You must be Sophia, Rebecca said as she approached, her tone warm but measured. Ethan mentioned you might be in town. I am, Sophia replied, clearly thrown by Rebecca's knowledge of her existence. Just visiting, Rebecca smiled, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. I don't want to interrupt. I can grab a table over there until you're done. Actually, I think we were just finishing up, I said, looking to Sophia for confirmation. She nodded, a new understanding dawning in her eyes. Yes, we were. It was nice to meet you, Rebecca. As Rebecca went to order her coffee, Sophia gathered her purse, her composure visibly strained. She seems nice. She is, I agreed. She's also honest, direct, and knows what she wants, all qualities I've come to value. Sophia stood, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I really am sorry, Ethan, for everything. I know you are, I said, standing as well. And I forgive you, Sophia, not for you but for me. Carrying that anger around was exhausting. Surprise registered on her face. You're not angry anymore. No, I said truthfully. I'm grateful. Grateful? She repeated, confused. If you hadn't left, I might never have discovered what I'm capable of on my own. I might never have met Rebecca. Sometimes the worst things lead us exactly where we need to be. She absorbed this, a single tear finally escaping. So this is really goodbye. It is, I confirmed. I wish you well, Sophia. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. She nodded, seemingly unable to speak. With one last look, she turned and walked out of the cafe and out of my life for the final time. Rebecca joined me at the table, her expression concerned. Are you okay? Actually, I am, I said, surprised to find it completely true. Better than okay. That evening, as Rebecca and I walked along the Charles River, the setting sun painting the water in shades of gold and crimson, I felt a profound sense of peace. In my previous life, Sophia's betrayal had broken me because I had built my entire identity around our relationship. This time I had built myself first. You're quiet tonight, Rebecca observed, her hand warm in mine. Just thinking about paths not taken, I replied, and being grateful for the one I'm on. She smiled, the genuine warmth in her eyes, something I'd never truly had with Sophia. Any regrets? I thought of the moment I woke up in my college dorm, given a second chance at a life that had once broken me. The careful choices I'd made, the boundaries I'd established, the self-respect I'd maintained even when it would have been easier to fall back into old patterns. Not a single one, I said honestly. Later that night, as Rebecca slept peacefully beside me, I thought about the strange journey that had brought me here. Being reborn had given me the gift of foresight, but the real gift had been the opportunity to choose myself when it mattered most. Sophia had run back to her ex when I was broke, believing she was choosing security and comfort. In my first life, that choice had destroyed me. But in this second chance, I had let her go and watched her regret it, not out of malice or revenge, but because some lessons can only be learned through consequence. The true victory wasn't seeing her suffering or begging for another chance. It was in the realization that her power over me had completely disappeared. The man who would have sacrificed everything to keep her was gone, replaced by someone who understood his own worth too well to compromise it for conditional love. As I drifted toward sleep, I felt gratitude for both lives. The broken one that taught me what I deserved and the rebuilt one where I finally claimed it. Sometimes the most meaningful revenge isn't making someone else suffer, but refusing to suffer yourself. Sometimes walking away isn't an end, but the first step toward becoming who you were always meant to be.